So when that happened, did you experience what most people experience? How did that, what was it
Yeah.
like? Did it feel like you just
Oh my
left?
gosh. Oh, wow. That easy release from the body where your body is crunched up and should be so much in pain and it's not. There is no pain at the time of death.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Rachel Corpus with us. She has had I believe, a lifelong journey of spiritual experiences, and she's had near-death experiences. So we're going to talk to her about that. So first of all, Rachel, thank you so much for joining the show today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. So nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. As I was saying before we started, I was feeling the energy and I'm trying to calm down the energy. Very light energy, so it's very nice. I was going to ask you because I'm looking at your a little bit of the bio. I don't dig in a ton, but from what it looks like, I believe you've had kind of a lifelong journey of experiences. So I'm going to question it the same way I question it for everyone. And we're going to see where this started, okay? So, a lot of people don't have a lot of experiences up until, say, a near death experience or a spiritual transformative experience, these types of things. So, the question I generally ask is if you think about who you were before your experiences and trying to get an idea who you were. Now, if this was a lifelong thing for you, maybe if I can get kind of an understanding of who you were as child Rachel, like who were you? What were the things you were doing in your life? Just to get a little background on you.
Oh, completely weird.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
I'm still weird, but I've had different versions of being delightfully weird my whole life. I mean, isn't that the same for all of us, I
Mhm.
suppose? But my version of, okay, and then I'm gonna pause that thought and say that about a year ago, the school of TikTok showed me that the definition of weird is we have one foot on earth and one foot in spirit. That's the original definition of weird, which kind of changed my life. Thanks, TikTok. And I
Right.
thought, wow, that's who I am.
Hmm.
And that really blossomed me. And I thought, okay, that explains me. That's where I've been, kind of my whole life. Um, and so before my first near death experience, which happened when I was 4 years old, I just kind of dilly dallied in the spiritual world and I didn't know it. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I imagine, especially now that, I'm a mama, my kids are teenage and one of them is beyond being a high school graduate. And I've been a teacher preschool through college, and I've been a minister in children's and youth ministry and all of that good stuff before. Now I'm a full-time psychic medium and angel communicator. I've been doing that for about 10 years or so. But and all those versions of me, I've been helping people discover who they are, not just as people walking around in these bodies, but who are we in the middle of that? Who are we at our core? Because we just create these costumes to walk around in for this duration of a life. But who are we? I don't know right now, Joe, if I want to say beyond our thoughts or deeper than our thoughts, but who are we as spirit? Who are we as little fractals of or big fractals as God of God, source, not religious God,
Hmm. Mhm.
but like love God, big God, colorful God, sparkly God. And so when I was a little one, I just didn't know any different. I was delightfully weird, and I would be able to connect with the earthworms and know what they were feeling. We didn't have conversations. It wasn't word to word. It was the feeling of I'm struggling right now. Could you put me into some warm, soft, wet earth? I would just know. No,
Hmm.
I didn't have a science lesson about that. I just knew. I knew if my brother's friends were shooting BBs at toads, I knew that I would put my hand instinctively and stop that BB. And it was like, am I a Power Ranger? I think I am. Stopped that bullet. And I didn't even feel the pain. It just like, pating.
Right.
Sometimes I would look in the mirror and I would see myself not as a person, but as a light body, pure light. And I thought, well, this is just what everybody does. And because I had no limits,
Wow.
I could do weird things. Like I could look at my fork at the table and I could move it.
Hmm.
It would go bloop, move over a little bit. Now, when I went to elementary school, of course, I was just like, well, if you want your straw to move, you just tell it to move, you ding-a-ling. Don't you do that at your house?
Right.
If your mom's in a bad mood, you just send her love. Don't you do that? Ugh. Doesn't your great great grandmother come sit on your bed at night and tuck you in? I just talked about it. We lived down the street from a cemetery and next door from a fire station.
Hmm.
And we lived in a Victorian house. And my parents had just purchased the old opera house, which was built, I believe, in like 1902 or 1904 or something. So I had a plethora of haunted places around me.
I bet.
Yeah. So I know I had a lot of trainers in my life that were like, oh, she sees spirit. Let's play with her. None of it was dark, or at least I didn't see it that way. Um, and then I guess what I'm saying is when I started to be around my peers and my teachers and my catechism teachers, because sometimes that experience was we would be at mass. I grew up Catholic, and the stories at church would be told, and I would have Jesus by me or some other ascended master that I didn't know who it was, but they felt loving. Like maybe it was the Buddha or Muhammad or someone. And they'd be like, that's not how it went. So I'd go to catechism and I'd say, that's not how it went. And they'd say, you're not supposed to say that. You
Hmm.
don't know. Listen to us. You're just a child. When all that started happening, or my peers said, you're you're strange. Don't talk to us about that. That's not, you're making that up. You're making that up. Or if you can move a spoon, do it right now. Well, then I couldn't because it felt like I was, oh, yuck, I can feel it now. Oh, it's gross. I was wearing like this, I call it a shame sweater,
Hmm.
the do it now. It's the same thing if you said to a comedian, be funny right now, or a runner, run right now. Do it now, do it now. I can't do that. In my mediumship, someone comes to sit with me and they say, well, I'm going to know you're legit if you know what my grandma said to me right before I came in this door. I can't do that. It's not my gift,
Right.
but I can tell you how she was as she was leaving this earth. I can tell you what she's doing right now. I can feel how much she loves you.
Hmm.
And so, going back to it, as a child, I was fully immersed in my spirituality until the rest of the world started to intercede. And my life's purpose is to help other people remember they are not separate from that idyllic way we came in. We are not separate from love. Whether we identify that with God's love, it doesn't matter. We're not separate from the big love we were first created with, or we're a part of that great love, I think. I know. I learned in my first near death experience, or perhaps I knew beforehand, that I'm actually an angel incarnate. And when I went to the other side, They told me I was a member of the seraphim realm. And they said you were born to a mom and dad, normal, but you belong here. You're part of this rank. And you can stay with us if you want. No harm in that. Or you can go back and you can finish your life as a human, and that'll be hard. They laid that out for me. I knew what I was getting into. And they said both will be blessed. You decide. And so obviously I'm here, and it has not been easy.
Right.
But through experiencing all that, pardon my language, but it is. I mean, this is classroom here.
Hmm.
It's helped me um, balance the earth experience and learn as a human, but also be the angelic messenger to help people come back to love.
Wow.
Boyfriend, that was a long answer.
No, that is, I love the answer because you gave us a good overview of who you are, who you were, who you still are, who you were as a child. So you've been the same person, just with different maturities throughout, trying to live in this world, handling it the best you could. You said
Yeah.
some things that were so interesting when you mentioned about the worm. So I don't want to say I felt the same way, but there's moments where I remember feeling the bugs and understanding them. And it sounds so strange, but I've never thought about it until you mentioned it. And then the other part was you mentioned that you had trouble with your with peers, telling them how you were these things you were going through. That's where I kind of went a little bit off too, because as a child, I keep repeating myself in these episodes, but I was seeing colors around people when I closed my eyes at night, and I started. My mom understood it, and she would kind of encourage it, but then I would tell my friends, and it was look, I they kind of looked at me like that doesn't make any sense, and I remember the thought of, oh, that's weird. Okay. Or I remember saying to someone one time, isn't it weird how you can like tell how people are feeling when you walk around like the grocery store or something? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, you can like feel it. You can, and they're like, no. Now I'm like, okay, all right, uh-oh. Like, so then I stopped. I stopped. I didn't talk about it at all. I'm like, hey, I got to get into my sports and just be a regular kid. Like I didn't take it on. But that's where I relate to what you were saying, even though yours were a little more enhanced, and you seen like light body around yourself, and I didn't experience that stuff. Um, but really fascinating. And you said it was 4 years old that you had your first NDE. And, you know, another thing, you mentioned that you were a human, like an angel in a human body. Is that I'm going to ask you about the NDE and how that actually occurred, but for someone like myself, or maybe other people out there, if I feel as if I've been here, wait, let me rephrase this. Um, I didn't need to be here. I don't know how else that makes any sense, but there's this feeling of this wasn't a necessary journey for me, but I did it for something, for some reason. That's the feeling that overcomes me, and I've felt like this my whole life. What does that mean? Is that the same feeling? Just wondering if you could touch
Mm.
on that a little bit.
May I channel that for you?
Sure, absolutely. I've tried to figure
Okay.
that piece out.
Because I don't know if I know in my own brain, but I can access that information for you.
Okay.
Okay. And I believe to get that information, I'm going to ask your personal angels, because every every being with a consciousness, every sentient being has guardian angels, and then every created being, every created thing has a guardian that looks after it. So even a rock that doesn't really have a thought, but has a place here, has a watcher over it. But then, like a plant who thinks in its own way, but doesn't necessarily have a brain like us, also has a guardian angel. You have have four. You have four guardian angels. Huh. They're saying your choice, it's always a choice to incarnate on Earth or any other place in our infinite galaxy. You couldn't possibly measure our galaxy. And even though this is the place, or they're saying one of the minority of places where we can come to learn the classroom type lessons, the hard lessons, as we might name it, you would fall into one of three categories. Humans would fall into one of three categories: the learner, the teacher, or the space holder. The space holder would be just kind of the cartilage in the center, vacillate between the observer or the teacher and the learner.
Okay.
You're the yeah, you just hold them there. They're kind of like the background players that Dolores Cannon talks about.
Right.
They just live. They get up, they go to work, they go home. They have
Mhm.
personalities and everything, and they create families, but they just don't have a lot of growth, and they signed up for that. You're not one of those people.
Right. Right.
And you are here to learn because you're here, but you actually showed up as a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have known that. And so though you do have some learning that you get to do, it's not have to do. It's never half. Whether no matter what part you play, you never have to learn. Karma is not a bitch. Karma is a goddess.
Okay.
Karma is a gift. So even if you are the learner, it's never ever a punishment. It's wonderful because karma is here to expand our frequency so that we can ascend. And as we ascend everyone. You, however, are here as the teacher, and you chose this because whatever lessons are in your soul map, your frequency, you worked with your soulmate group, your maybe it's 20 to 30 souls that you typically incarnate with.
Mhm.
You met with them plus your angelic team and some ascended masters, and collectively you decided, well, the lessons I have under my belt are significant enough that I'm ready to output them. I'm ready to share them. And so instead of going to these galaxies as a learner, I'm ready to become, instead of the disciple, the learner, I'm ready to become the apostle, teacher.
Okay.
That's what you're doing. Hence the show.
Right. That makes
That's what
perfect
it
sense.
is. And why you can come in with these spiritual gifts of feeling energy and being able to notice right away when you're getting overwhelmed and be able to transmute that into, okay, I'm going to breathe this through, be able to bring the energy in and fuse it into my energy. What you might not be able to feel, but is happening, is other people's energy. It's actually propelling yours in a very positive way. That's the overwhelmed feeling. You're alchemizing it.
Okay.
It's blending with your heart, your cells. And when someone has energy that's low vibrational frequency, it's not mingling with yours.
Hmm.
It's not.
Right. Yes,
You're not allowing it in.
I will say to yourself and my audience listening, you're spot on with pretty much everything you just said there. So, yeah, I know as soon as you said the teacher, yeah, yeah, everything I've done, I've wanted to teach. Like I'm always in that teacher role. And so it makes perfect sense. And I guess maybe that is what is at times, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, a lot of people are frustrated with the things that go on in the world. It's like you said, it's not the easiest place to be. And there are times where you go, like myself, where I think, what am I doing here again? Like there's like this, but it's not that I don't want to go either. It's like I feel very grounded to being here because there's like this feeling of deep mission, um and like a long haul deep mission type thing. So but there's this idea of uh but I had a choice, and like you said, we all have a choice, and it
Yes.
really felt as if I just said, no, I think that this will help, and here I come. And that was kind of that's the
Yes.
feeling I get internally. So I just never brought that up in a show, and I thought, yeah, I might as well just throw it out there right now.
It's good you
Wanted to.
did. Well, and if I may add from your angels, sometimes the disconnect can be your role as a teacher is sometimes very pronounced, but equally so, your teaching ability is also just showing up. It's just your essence. And so sometimes it can lend itself to, should I be doing more? That feeling of, and only if you want to. It's
Okay.
always a gift. So when you have that feeling of, should I be resting this week? Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. Don't worry so much. You're designed to be in receiving mode in this lifetime. So yes, put your feet up. Drink drink the water, drink the beer, receive, sit in the sun, whatever makes sense to you. Love this earth. Let the earth give back to you in this lifetime.
Mm,
Because when you had the many, many lifetimes as the student, that's what you were trying to learn was divine balance. And you sought out many teachers who had already found that these yogis that these gurus, these yogis that you thought, well, how do you know this? But you're so at peace. How are you just sitting in the sun? Why aren't you solving the world's problems? And they said, that's not for me to do. I'm just doing my part.
mm.
And that's what you're here to teach. I am just here to do my part. I'm going to go take a nap now. I'm going to go meditate.
Right.
I
Okay.
hope that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, because you said the teaching and that there's this, but I feel like I'm just getting started. That's the whole bizarre part of this. I've been doing this my
You're
whole,
not.
it's just, I feel like I'm now just moving into this. So I don't know what that means, but um,
Just allow it.
yeah.
Let the universe carry it.
Well, we'll leave that about me. I appreciate you channeling that.
Yeah.
Um, with your when you were a child and you had this NDE, how did that happen? I'm just curious how that happened at 4 years old.
Yes. Well, there's someone that I love very much that I only knew as a child. And my family started to like, okay, so we were hit by a drunk driver.
Hmm.
So this was my first lesson, one of my first lessons in how to love someone that destroys your life. Drunk driver. It's one of my parents' students. My parents were remodeling that live theater,
Oh,
that opera house that I mentioned. It had been through many phases in that opera house had been through many phases in its life. And my parents were school teachers who still don't make enough money, right? Isn't that weird? So they thought, well, they'd always loved being performers and costume makers and everything. So they got a loan and they bought this beautiful big theater. And a lot of their high school students were helping them on the weekends to restore it. So they took a couple of students and me and my brother to a movie in a nearby town. And on the way back, we got hit by one of their other students who had been drinking.
okay.
Yeah. And it completely changed our lives. Little did we know how much it would change our lives. And for me, I mean, it completely opened me up. And I think for every family member, they could each write a book on how it expanded them. For me, this is my story. And the other book I could write is how it helped me start to love the so-called villains in my life because he was just a kid. But for
Mm.
so many years, my family villainized him, and I never felt that way about him, not for a moment. But that's how it happened.
So they were villainizing him. He was
Yes,
a drink, and he actually ended up being the person that you were hit by.
yes. And
Wow.
now having my own teenage children, yeah, I just couldn't imagine. I could never imagine being mad at him.
Wow.
Yeah,
So when that happened, did you experience what most people experience? How did that, what was it
yeah.
like? Did it feel like you just
Oh my
left?
gosh. Oh, wow. That easy release from the body where your body is crunched up and should be so much in pain and it's not. There is no pain at the time of death. And I've heard that from so many people who have actually completed the death process. There is no pain, whether we are being shot, stabbed, mangled. And I hope people who are hearing this, who are wondering about their loved ones, if they were afraid or felt alone. I hear so many people wonder, who have found their loved ones who died alone and were not found for a few days. Oh, I'm telling you, through my experience of near death and talking to so many, it's by this time in my life, it's got to be thousands of people who have died. I have not met one person who has suffered at the time of passing.
Mm.
That amazing release. Each time I've had a near death experience, I have noticed two amazing things consistently. I've noticed that there's this immediate release from the body. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's still my voice. I can always hear my voice. It's the sound of my voice,
Hmm.
but I no longer identify. I still know everything about my life. Rachel, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and those things are precious to me. But the farther away I get from my body, that story becomes something. Oh, I want to say this in the most precious, perfect way. You start to absorb back into the perfect love of God. Again, not religious God, but source God. And so I recall in one near death experience when so I'm married right now. And so, for example, I remember moving away from my body and seeing my husband in the bed next to me and realizing, wow, I was married to that man and I will love him forever. That was an amazing life. I'm not going to miss that. I can't wait to come back and see him. That was amazing. And then what drew me back in my body was the thought that, oh, my children and my husband, they're still going to need me. And that thought brought me back in my body. It was the earth thought that brought me back. But the spirit in me, it was this overwhelming love that was absorbing me back in.
Hmm.
It was that. And I'm not explaining it because it's such a heavenly thought. We can't think it when we're in our body. But I had this knowing that I'd be back to check, but I didn't, I wasn't my earth self anymore, but I could hear my own voice. And the other thing was I had no physical feeling anymore. I felt like a cloud. I felt like a cloud. When I was back in my body the next day or so, I asked my angels, is that because I'm an angel? And they said, no, everyone feels that way.
Okay. I have a question around this.
Yes,
Thank
please
you so much.
ask.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, this is the question I have. I believe from knowing people
Mhm.
over my lifetime so far that, when you talk about different ailments people get in this world, whether it's anxieties and all these different things, that a lot of people's anxieties and a lot of people's mental health related issues can sometimes be around a fear of loss or death or losing everything. There's like this understanding of I need to have control over everything, and we don't have control over everything, right? Like we do,
Right.
but we don't, right? There's certain things that we do and certain things we don't. And so the reason I'm prefacing that is because what I got from what you said is you left your body and you recognized your life. You recognized the people that were characters within your life, the people that you love, the souls that were in these bodies and all this, and
Mhm.
you felt connected. But as you said, as you kind of came away from that, you started to realize, okay, you almost like a realization you'd still be okay. You're not gonna like, okay, I'm good with being gone with that now. And that and then obviously the love of the souls came back online of the people you were incarnating with or whatnot, and it drove you back to wanting to still be here.
Mhm.
Okay, here's my question. I believe that because some people are really frightened of losing people, whether people have lost before them or after, that they kind of get stuck and they're always trying to control everything, and that can create anxiety. And the question I would have is, do you believe or know or have a feeling that as we leave further and we go to where we go, we can have a remembrance or connection with these souls the same way we do here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I also want to say that if we have too much anxiety about what can happen or like where we're going, we cannot leave our body sometimes. And that can create an earthbound spirit, can create a ghost.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And this is
Yeah.
where this comes up a lot, right? And there's people I've spoke with that help release these souls
Yes.
and things like that. So,
We all can do that. We all can do that. Since we are internally all spirit, we can all speak to spirit. What I do is not magical. It's every day. We all have that ability. All we all we get to do is speak out loud and spirit can hear us. It's nothing magical. So if we feel that there is a friend or a family member that we even wonder is stuck, we just get to say, okay, cousin Chuck, I hope that you're on the other side. If you're not, I love you so much. Angels, I'm going to ask you to present a door. And Chuck, I want you to look for this door. It's filled with light. Everyone's waiting for you. I don't know everything. I don't know what that means to you, but I promise you it's going to be better than staying here. Will you please go?
mm,
Just be the liaison, be the go between. That's all it takes.
I love that because and like I said, there likely are people who pass, and because they're so attached to the life that they've lived, that they haven't
Yes.
allowed themselves to rise up to where it's coming next because there's some
Yes.
uncertainties, but if they communicate correctly, they probably know. This is where I get so I want to speak on this because I've now spoke with, I mean, I kind of studied near death experiences longer than before I started this podcast because it was an obsession of mine. I think when I was in my late teens, I had a high anxiety around death. I thought we just turned to nothing and it never felt right. And so I would study and study and study and read and read. And then I went, oh, wow, there's something more going on. And then here I am now talking to all these people about their experiences. Sometimes people will just pop out of their body, they'll be observant around the area, they'll have a quick moment and they'll say, "Okay, I'm going back." And they'll go back or they'll feel the love to their mother, come back, that kind of thing. Other people go through a tunnel, they see a light, they go into this place. I'm getting a lot of people who say they see kind of this dividing area where they know if they cross this division that there's no coming back, and they
Yeah.
just have this awareness of that. But it's enough that they can see there is something beyond, almost like a glass wall. You can see, okay, there's more. So I'm not sure where I'm going with this question, but I guess the idea is possibly the people who are stuck as ghosts or whatnot haven't seen this further. They haven't gone up further enough to see that there's more beyond. And they're worried they're going to lose the things they have in this life. And that's why I brought that up, because there are people who are so scared of losing what they have here. But I believe, just from what I've heard people say, because I haven't had a near death experience, is that we're still connected soulfully there. In fact, we're more soulfully connected there. Our higher selves are there, right? And I've always said
Yes.
it's like this is us, and then we have our little selves here doing this
Oh, yes.
part,
This is the dream.
right? And did it feel that way? Like, did it feel as real when you
Yes.
were okay? So it felt as
Yes.
real as this moment.
Yes. For me, it felt like I was waking up over there, that I had been dreaming over here.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So it was an awakening feeling, the same way when we wake up
Yeah.
from our dream at night and we go, wow, that
Yes.
was a wild dream.
Yes.
Okay. But time usually is different there too. I'm told that you realize that
Yes.
somebody had the other day a really good analogy was if you were to put someone in a room with no windows and somehow they were able to survive, you must be being fed. This sounds awful because it sounds like someone's being tortured, but if you were in a room and you had no windows for days and months, and you at some point would completely lose track of time.
Like Vegas.
Right. Like Vegas? Yeah, I guess so.
Like a casino.
Yeah, exactly. You just lose track completely. And I guess that's the timelessness that we are, that we've lost like connection with. That there's because we attribute everything to time, which actually adds more stress because what
Uh-huh.
time is it? We need to get here in time. We need to do this.
Uh-huh.
What would you recommend to people who are dealing with that? If people have this go, go, go feeling, because I'm sure you talk to a lot of people, I'm wondering if there's anything that
Yeah.
comes to your heart that way.
Mm. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that so much. The recommendation that I'm feeling from spirit is that when when a timestamp is needed, that's one thing. You and I, we got to show up at a certain time together so we could have this conversation. That's amazing. And there are other times that we get to show up because our work starts at a certain time. That is something that they would like to remind us in this world. That's not happening to us. We're actually creating that. So, someone who is feeling like they're stuck in a loop, oh, I have to go to work today. I have to go to work today. They would like to help people change that perspective and roll back and roll back in time, even though there is no time. They know we think that way. So roll back in time. And this is actually Archangel Gabriel speaking. Let me help you roll back into time. And to the time you said, oh, I need a job. I want a better job. I need a job. I want a better job. You created this job. Lovely. You created this job. You're the creator. And now that you've created this job, you created going to work. You are the creator. And so time is, your life is not happening to you. You're creating the time. You're creating your life. And you get to realize that you are creating every moment. Nothing is happening to you. It's you are creating it. It's happening for you and through you. And so if there's something happening in your life that you do not appreciate, we want to tell you we are here to create with you. Let's create something different. And we also realize that in this dimension, there are things that do happen to you because you cannot command another person's free will. For example, abuse. When you are in that situation, please remember to talk to us. We can intervene to the best of our ability and help you create control within that situation. For example, within your own thoughts, no one can control your thoughts. And we can help, with your permission, we can help send you pathways, doorways out of that situation. Yes, we can. Our main advice to you today is when you have time gaps, remember that you can stretch time. For example, last weekend, Rachel had a weekend with her girlfriends, and she realized that the weekend felt like a week because she did not look at her phone. She looked at the water, and she allowed herself to take a nap without an alarm. She stretched time. We are encouraging you to do this. Stretch your body. The only time she used was when she was cooking. She cooked, she timed it through the duration of songs. I will bake this casserole for the duration of 4 songs, and then I will check it. No time even then. This is how you can command time. And then one of my angels said, make it your bitch.
Nice. Right. Well,
Our angels match us, and I like a good cuss word.
love it. So take
I hope
control.
that's helpful.
Realize we have the control over our creation.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we're so obsessed with the control of everything, like I said earlier, I think we're obsessed with the almost like the physical control, like not the
Yeah.
manifestation of control, like not control in a negative, control in a positive, in a way that you can
Yeah.
recreate.
We're obsessed with it because we can do it.
Right. But we're doing it wrong sometimes. We're
Flip it.
yeah.
Flip it. Gain back our sovereignty, our control.
Mhm.
We're obsessed with it because a few people who get it have been doing it. We're obsessed with it because we're so close. We just got to grab it. It's low-hanging fruit.
Mhm.
Grab it and then utilize it for love.
Wow.
We're I think this earth, I know this earth is done with being controlled. We're ready to, this is why people are talking about the rise of enlightenment and Atlantis coming back. Yes, the technology is coming back. Great. We got it. We got it. AI, we got it. It's going to be great. It is great. We're talking about buzzy conversations like this.
Mhm.
We're talking about knowing each other, empowering each other. We're talking about the generation of children being born who are ready for a new way of being educated. We're
Mhm.
talking about spirituality reteaching religion. We're talking about a bartering system meshing with our current economy. We're talking about a different political system being born. I mean,
Yeah.
Archangel Azrael shows me that just as we know death isn't really real, the physical body, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, but we don't die.
Mhm.
All of these structures are experiencing a perceived death so that newness can grow. And do you feel we're ready for it? I do.
Yeah. I feel too that I love all of that. I also, the other day, I was thinking about how people are, I sometimes get upset when people are glued to their phones, right? And I see kids glued to their phones and they're stuck in their phones. And I don't want to say I was going down the negative path of thinking about it, but I guess I would say it like that. And I was always wondering what's going on. And then just the other day, I seen just a bunch of boys outside throwing a football around and none of them are on their phones. And I looked at it and I went, okay, these are kids that have the opportunity to be glued in front of their phones, but they're not. And the question is,
Yeah.
why aren't they? Because they're
Yeah.
learning. So I'm like, we needed to see this. So the younger
Mm.
generation is being glued to their phones to see the loss of time, the loss of what the time with their people, right? Like because we didn't experience that. I remember walking home as a kid and kicking rocks and seeing how far I could kick the rock. I had more time, but now a kid is walking home on their phone and they're home because it's so quick because they're
Yeah.
glued. And then it probably I would assume it's bringing it right. It's like when we learn something, it gets hard. Like things get difficult in order to learn. So they're going, okay, there must be moments where they go, okay, I gotta put this down. Even at like
It's
12 years
starting.
old, they're
Yes.
probably feeling this. So it's, I do believe you're gonna, I feel we're gonna see that, because I don't think we're just gonna be like this. Like so many people, I don't think it.
Mm-mm.
We're human, we're soul. Like there's gonna be this disconnect. We don't like things that feel bad. So we're going to go after what
That's
feels
right.
good. And I believe that. Like just when you were saying that, I was, in expanding. I love how your example about the time you had on the weekend, and we can stretch the time. It depends on what we're focusing on, right? And
Yeah.
it's that's amazing. You just really quickly, you've had more than one near death experience.
Yes.
So when you said you
Yes.
had the one, I believe the main one, was it the one where you said you saw your husband?
Yes. The biggest one was when I was 4. And then after that, I've had, I call them mini near-death experiences.
Okay.
Um, because I know they would seem big to other people, but I didn't feel that I was really in danger. They were given to me so I could see the other side.
Okay.
And then I really just, I hate the ER. I hate it. I hate the experience of waiting for 6 hours and going in for 3 hours and getting a little pat on the head. So this is very irresponsible. I do not recommend it. I do not, but I just waited it out,
Mm,
except the one with my heart. I went in for that one. That was scary days.
right.
But I'm confident when I talked to my angels when they said, we're doing this to educate you, girl. And also one of the, I have a personal history with deep anxiety and depression and alcoholism. And so some of it was related to that. And I will always have a relationship with anxiety and depression. That's kind of the flip side of being an angel. I mean, it's not all like rainbows and puppy dogs. No,
Right.
I've conquered the alcoholism, thank God.
That's good.
Yeah, so some of it was related to anxiety and depression. My body just couldn't take it, and my heart physically stopped.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the one where I was coming out of my body. Yeah, it
Okay.
was just so much. Yeah,
And
that
you,
was a main one, right? Something I saw when I was out of my body, and that one was really alarmed me. It kind of led me into nihilism where I just didn't like this world for a while. And that was quite strange. When I came out of my body for that one, I actually saw for a couple of moments. That's the one where I saw my higher self and my husband's higher self. They were in a large computer room, and I must have been, I don't know what I looked like to them, but they saw me. And I just knew it was my higher self. But she didn't really look like me. She had darker hair. My husband's higher self didn't really look like him, but the computers looked almost like they looked strange. The room was beautiful, but strange. And then there was a big window or screen, and you could see into our bedroom.
oh wow.
And it's like they were inserting data. My brain at that time thought that they were controlling us. They weren't. They weren't. So my nihilism was like, is this all like some computer game? And that's
Right.
not what they were doing. But that's where my brain went because I had been reading a lot about the matrix, and is this all made up?
Hmm.
That's where I was. So I asked my angels, did my brain do this in my near-death experience? And they said, no, no, we wanted you to see something. This is your higher self, and your higher self is able to input things into your brain as you ask for them. And this, some of it is, can be rather, there are essences of the universe that can be rather mechanical, and this is how you chose to see it. But it took me a while to be able to get back into that and see it from a place of love. When I went back in, I was like, well, why even work? Why even work for any of this if it's just a simulation and there are a couple people doing everything? I mean, that was rough. That really messed with me for a while. So I would
Yeah.
like to say that, because I don't want to present myself as someone who's like, well, she's got it all together. I'm never going to be that. I want to be honest here, because
Mhm.
this has taken me a long time to get here. And
Right.
I'm not always at this place. I have hard days. This is
Hmm.
hard work.
I bet. Yeah, that's okay. As you were explaining this, that simulation theory was coming into my mind that I've seen people say. And it's never felt right to me as well. What was it that changed your mindset around that then? Was it just your conversation with your angels? Like, what was it that made you
Yeah.
then come out of that place?
Well, they told me that the simulation theory is not completely wrong. It's that when people come up with the simulation theory, the correct part of it is we are creating this, but it's not some, sweaty college kid at the top of the universe,
Hmm.
with like this. No, it's all of us. We're all creating it. It's the consciousness creating this version
Hmm.
with all of our thoughts. And so the simulation part of it is, if there are enough of us that believe that Chick-fil-A exists, if we, for example, weird example, but that's what came to me. I must be hungry. Um, then something like that can occur, right? Or if we've all constructed the ocean, that's been here for so long that the ocean is continually creating itself. We've created the earth together. That's the consciousness.
Hmm.
That's the simulation. And since everything is made, not there's no matter, it's all energy, and yet we believe that a table is a table, so it continually shows up as a table because that's what we believe. That's the simulation, but it's not one person or one team of people that is inputting data.
Right.
Oh, Joe needs his microphone today. Do enter.
Right.
It's
Right.
not that.
Yeah, I think probably what it and this is why I think a lot of people have such a struggle with that idea. It feels almost feels like a negative feeling when you think of simulate. Like it feels like dark, dark or
Yeah.
negative. And it's because
Yes,
we're
like we
not,
have no control.
yeah, I don't think we fully because we're looking at it from where we are right now and what a
Yeah.
simulation computer game would be or a program. It's
Right.
not the
Like it's
same.
taken our control.
Right, right,
We're in absolute control. We are.
right.
There are some things under that umbrella that are being controlled. There are some parts of the weather that are being controlled, but not all the weather is being controlled.
Mhm.
Let's look at the clouds. When we collectively are putting out love, the clouds respond. There
Mhm.
is love coding in the clouds. And we've probably, most of us as children at least, have connected to the clouds when we're looking up and we're like, oh, that looks like a bear.
Right. Yeah.
There's coding in that, and that is real. And also, there are some parts of the country that produce artificial clouds. I don't know why. I just know it's true. And you can look online and see that's public information where those are put out. I don't know why. I don't know why they do that, but it's true. And maybe it's to cover up. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. That's beyond my pay grade. So two things can be true at once. I know that the second moon that is coming into view, well, it started to appear yesterday in some parts of the world. I know that that's extraterrestrial in nature.
Mm,
I know that. I know we are not creating that. I know that that's someone else. I know
right.
it's fine.
Yeah, I think some of it, what it is that because even if you were to take out this whole simulation thing, just take that right away, and you're
Yeah.
just to think, okay, we are God, or we are part of God. If we go even down the religious side of it, okay, we are made in God's image. We come here, and we have free will to create, to co-create, and all these things, and we try to be the best human being we can, and we follow let's say we follow all the commandments, we do good, and then we go off to heaven. It's still all these theories are the same. They're all the same. We're just coming at it from a different angle, right? And so when we say simulation or a computer like that, it starts to feel, I don't know what it is. It feels a little cold in
Yeah.
nature. And that's what I think us humans are feeling. But we're not realizing that it's much bigger than what we know. It's like when people think that we just kind of know everything right now. Right. In this year, like we have no idea. And
Oh,
this is why when,
no.
I haven't had anybody on that talks about um ETs or different worlds and all these things. I haven't had anybody yet about that. Maybe partially because of the audience, that I'm wanting to make sure my audience is into that, but then I'm like, but I'm curious. And there's like
Mm-hmm.
these kind of feelings that come and go. But then I'm like, it's silly though. If, I look at it like this. If another being from another existence or another planet, let's say, or another solar system, another galaxy, because there's millions of galaxies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it came here, and they are at minimum 2 million years older than us. Even minimum 2 million years. Think about what they know. Think about what their existence went through and where we
Mm-hmm.
are at right now. So for anyone to think that we just have it figured out is kind of preposterous. Like, it makes, to me, it just seems bizarre to even think in
Right.
that sense, right? And that's where I
Right.
kind of go sometimes. So, I don't generally argue with people about these things. I know everybody's on their own learning journey and
Yeah,
going
just
through.
stay open.
Yeah, I love that. Just to stay open and
Stay
allow these
open.
things. So you had this near-death experience. You went up, you saw your higher self, almost in a creative computer simulation kind of
Yeah,
place. And you came back, and at first you had kind of a negative feeling towards it, but
I
then
really did.
you worked through it. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess I asked you this earlier, but what is your conclusion? Is there a way that you conclude what you feel from that? Like, are you feeling like it's not negative then? And that
It's not negative to me now. It was. It led to a good year of me just kind of going through the motions because I did a deep dive into the matrix and went down that road. And I really felt that a lot of what I had been working with, I thought, well, what's the point if I'm just being programmed all the time? And I really had to get back into my personal spirituality and do a lot of questioning source and my angels. And when it challenged me to listen. It challenged me to find new ways to listen to spirit. And when I did that, the answers I received are really a lot of things that you just did such a beautiful way of speaking is just no one is creating for us. My When we have near death experiences, it's we're not separate from our ego yet.
Mhm.
Our thinking brain is still there because we're still us. And because I had been deep diving into matrix and simulation theory, I saw it. I
Mhm.
saw it. My high self wanted to see it. When she saw me, and there was this moment of, what are you doing here? I don't know. Who are you? That's when I started to go back into my body. Now, had I had the presence of mind to just stay and watch, And I have gone back in meditation. I've gone back to that room. The room is expansive. And what's actually going on is that is part of my consciousness where I'm able to go in and see different facets of my life. I'm not a big tech person, I'm not a big computer person, so that still stumps me. But it is part of my higher self that gets into my calendar, gets into the parts of my, I call it my front loader, where if I have an administrative day, this is the part of me that'll get the stuff done that I'm not really looking forward to. Then I get to the bliss. That's actually where I went first in that near death, almost like she was preparing my life review. Here are the things we want to look at first.
Hmm.
Then we're going to get to the good stuff. It's like I didn't go far enough. Interestingly enough, where I was in my near death experience, like where my physical body was, I was not even past my bedroom ceiling.
Hmm.
It wasn't that far out.
Wow.
And when I was starting to get pulled back in, I remember being farther than that. So I must have gotten a little farther, but not enough to kind of shake out that icky feeling of what did I just see?
Mhm.
And I'd like to make that known because near death experiences seem so big and vast, and sometimes they're rather quick. I feel that that was offered to me because the one when I was 4, I mean, that was everything. I was given a choice. You can stay here, you can go back. This one was, we want to give you something to ponder. I think it was meant, go back to sleep and think about it. Ugh, it led to a good year of nihilism.
Hmm.
Nothing felt right. Food didn't taste right. I mean, music didn't sound right. I was just really in a slump. That really led to me drinking more to try to just get the dopamine hit and just something. I ended up actually hearing from God right here, not in the room, not in my on my head, but right here. And the voice said, eventually, if you keep drinking, you're going to be really dead in 3 weeks. But if you stop, you'll have anything you want in your life. And that near death experience was a preface to my real death. So that blossomed me open to, I believe, my real self that I hadn't known since I was a child.
Mhm.
Big
Wow.
stuff.
So that really created a lot of internal work. And
Cool.
I think what you said is where this is where I would focus for anyone listening, that because some people might be even frightened by that idea that we're just a big simulation and all this stuff. It really creates a lot of tension and anxiety in a lot of people. And the way I would say it is like this: you just mentioned you then felt God. You felt if there's a God, so we're not just some
Right.
computer thing. There's bigger pieces to this, and your ego was still online. It was still connected. So had your
Yeah.
ego been taken off, if your ego was not present, you would have had a full understanding of everything surrounding what was going on. Everything would make more sense. And I think
Yes.
that's where a lot of people get a little bit lost because sure, we can sit and focus in this one area, but then what about the person who has the near-death experience that goes off into this afterlife in a pasture and they don't have the feeling of ego and they just feel all love and they're with all their family that they were been with?
Mhm.
This is another realm. This is another realm. So that's not all still being controlled. There's more to this, and this is why again, I feel bad sometimes for us humans because we're trying to understand something that's so much larger than we can handle. There's a reason we can't handle so much of it. It's the same sense when people go over there and they come back and they'll be telling their story and they go, and then there was this block of time that I don't remember anything. And then I remembered coming back and I go, I wonder what happened in that time. You know, either we can't remember it or it was too much or we're not supposed to know it. And
Right.
so, right. So I can see why you got down into that place though, but then you think it's the same concept I said as kids being addicted to their phones.
Mhm.
We can look at it like it's negative, or we can look at it like, okay, time to learn. We're
Yeah, it
learning.
just is.
And you came back with this feeling and you went, okay, I got to learn again. I got to learn again.
Yeah,
And wow. So that's, would you say out of all of them then that when you had it, when you're at four, that was your most connected you felt?
I
Um,
believe so.
yeah.
Even though it was so long ago, I can remember it distinctly because when I was out of my body, I wasn't functioning as a 4-year-old. I was back in this consciousness. So I'm able to remember it so distinctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it, making that choice to come back. And the choice to come back was interesting because I didn't say, okay, I'll come back. The choice to come back was I I remember feeling how hurt my mother would be if I didn't come back. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was back in my body.
Right. I hear about that often. I
Mhm.
hear about that often. There's this feeling, there's this thought, and then it's like, oh no,
I'm back.
I gotta do this again.
Yeah.
If you look at your whole life and the things you've done, right? Because now I believe you said you're now doing mediumship, you work with people one on one.
Yeah.
Is that what you normally do? Or
Yeah.
okay. Do you see any commonalities in people you're working with in who's coming to the earth, right? Like as our consciousness is growing, I'm wondering if you're seeing any commonalities or anything that
Mhm.
stands out.
I typically see people who are recognizing they're here to do soul work, light work, and they are beginning to remember that they are here to do that. And they are doing their best to try to pinpoint those gifts and amplify those gifts. Many of them have felt like the black sheep in their family, where they feel that or they know they have a gift or gifts and they're just under the surface and they're trying to connect with those. Mhm. Or they have children that they recognize are gifted and they're trying to help them
Okay, so you do see those often,
often, daily,
daily.
daily. Yeah.
How do people connect with you?
Well, the easiest way is my website, and that's my name, Rachel Corpus. My last name is spelled like Corpus Christi, Texas, and that's my real name, rachelcorpus.com. And I'm on all social media. I'm not very active on social media. It's probably my generation, but I'm on there. And then I have a podcast that's really special to me, and it's called Angel Talk. And that's on all platforms, or you can go right to the network I work for. That's Mind, Body, Spirit FM. And again, that podcast is called Angel Talk. And I do share about my journey, all of it. And I have great guests and things like that, and share a lot of messages from my angel team. And that's such a nice way to just tune in with your headphones in and nobody knows you're listening. And I share ways you can get a hold of me and ask questions for the podcast. And episodes are just kind of delightfully short, about half an hour, and you can just tune in and get some wisdom. And yeah, I'm really proud of that podcast. So I hope people can tune into that.
I love that. I'm going to make sure that I put those in the show notes because I didn't know that
You.
you ran a podcast. See, that's what I mean. I don't
Yeah.
dig in, and
Yeah.
now I'm going to tune in. So that's amazing. So
Thank you.
I encourage people. Last question I ask everybody, if you could sum it up, you've had this journey so far in your life. Why do you believe this is hard because maybe each individual is different for you? That's what I'm feeling, but in essence, our human incarnation, what is our main purpose that we come here for?
We come here to remember that we are made of spirit and love, and we are all connected to each other, whether we are incarnated as plant, animal, human. We really are all one. We began as one, we'll end up as one, and we're all walking around as different versions of each other. And we're just here to figure that out and remember.
And I feel that too. And I feel that there's an expansion though, because we have our own soul. So we keep expanding on that, right? Somebody, I forget what
Yes.
someone had said, but like we created, so if there was one God from the beginning and it said, let's create this soul, let's create this soul, let's create. Well, now that's created and
Yeah.
energy cannot be destroyed, right? So now you've already created it. So now that expands. So it's just an infinite amount of expansion. So there's
Yes.
no reason to fear. Can we go back to our oneness? Yes, but
Yeah.
we've already had that creation now. So now we're part of that.
Yes.
And that's where
Enjoy it.
yeah, I love that.
Keep
Thank,
expanding.
thank you so much for being on today and talking with us. I really appreciate it. I think that the audience is going to love you. So I appreciate you coming
Oh.
on. I uh I always I turn to the audience, say please continue to like, share, and subscribe. That's why Soul Inspired keeps growing at the pace it is. We love having people join in and please leave comments and start a discussion because I love seeing the discussion that happens from these episodes. So thank you so much, Rachel, for being on today.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being so kind. I can already feel you. Bless you.